Are you all enjoying this incredible place? Have you had a chance to have a look around? It's not often that you have literally every single parenting, baby, expert brand all under the one roof. Let's give a huge round of applause to the organizers of Baby Expo. We're expecting bigger and better for the next year, right? I'm also wanted to say a huge thank you to the Baby Expo and the organizers. They're actually sponsoring today's They Say It Takes a Village podcast. And I'm very, very grateful. And we're going to have an amazing conversation with a woman who needs no introduction at all, the mastermind behind FadeFit, the better half of Kris Fade, and mommy to baby Kruz, Brianna Fade. Big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi.
Oh, I'll give you the
Thank you.
Oh,
Hi, everybody.
how are you?
I'm good.
Are you enjoying the Baby Expo?
I am. It's, you know what? I was actually pleasantly surprised. You know, FadeFit, I'm the brand manager of FadeFit, and we have a stand here, and we didn't know how it was going to be, and we like sold out of all our snacks yesterday and today. So
That's amazing.
It's just amazing. I love it. It's just well done to the organizers.
No,
So
honestly,
good.
it's the first time it's ever happened. I've never seen this much energy around parenting before, which is really, it's such a beautiful welcome to actually support parents the same way that they've done.
Right, and I feel like, I don't know, it just feels so familiar, right? Like I see so many people and like so many recognizable faces and followers, and it's just like, it just feels like a nice, you know, like family. You know,
That's
event,
right. That's right. I feel like mine and your connection almost has come full circle. We connected, a little story, we connected when Brianna was actually heavily pregnant. You were almost due.
Yes.
And then we were supposed to record a podcast, and in my tenacious nature, I kept pushing. I kept saying, Brianna, we need to do this episode. We need to do this episode. And then...
Right, so we planned it, I remember. So we planned it, and it was going to happen, and what I didn't tell you, because I didn't tell anybody when I had Kruz. So I think I announced the birth of Kruz, who's in the audience over there. Say hi. Kruz, there he is.
Oh,
Isn't this
so gorgeous.
So we didn't announce him until a month later. So what you don't know is I actually went into labor.
You went into
I
labor?
went into labor. That's why I couldn't come on your podcast. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I was like, oh, you know, she's busy.
Yeah,
You know, I'm not gonna cry over it. That's
Yeah. So he came. Technically, he's premature. He was 1 day premature. So he came just out of nowhere. So,
big entrance to the world.
Yep.
Congratulations. He is gorgeous.
Thank you.
Obviously, everyone's here. Parents, moms, dads. Parenting journey is not an easy one.
Right.
And, you know, just to get a little bit, before we get into the sort of the heavyweight questions, how long have you been here in the UAE?
So I've been here now for 10 years, which is so crazy. It was only supposed to be for 2 years, I think, like a lot of people. But
That's everyone's story.
10 years.
What made you decide to come here?
It was actually for work, so I came with an opportunity. Again, only supposed to be for 2 years. I was obviously a lot younger then, so, you know, just a bit of fun, a bit of work, make some money, and then go back home. But
you stuck around.
I stuck a while.
Yeah, you stuck around.
I met somebody.
I was going to say, I'm like...
Oh, there he is. He's right there. So I met him 6 months into being here. So yeah, that's...
Without putting you too much on the spot, how did you guys meet?
Well, he slid in the DMs.
As most of them do.
Right, yeah. So yeah, just on Instagram, we had mutual friends, and it just kind of started from there.
Beautiful.
Now here we are.
Here we are, baby later. How old is Kruz now?
He's 6.5 months now.
Oh, I find that this is such a beautiful age.
It
6.5 months.
Yeah, his little personality. He's such a good boy. He's sleeping. He's doing everything right. So
is he sleeping?
Yes. I mean, you know, luckily, thank goodness we live in Dubai, so I have a beautiful nanny. Virginia's there as well. I did. So, you know, I couldn't do a lot without her. So,
it's that support system.
It definitely.
It takes a village, right?
Exactly. And, you know, because we don't have our family here, so we need somebody to support us. So
absolutely.
Super grateful.
I'm going to get into something a little heavier. I know your journey to sort of motherhood was a bit of an up and down. I think you were quite, you know, you put your story out there and your journey with the Graves' disease.
Yes.
How was that like?
So, so I had obviously Kruz 6 months ago, but I wanted to have him a few years ago.
Okay.
But in 2021, I was actually diagnosed with Graves' disease. I was having like heart palpitations, and I just felt like just an overall sense of just not well. So I went to the doctors, Kings, who's a big supporter here. I went there got a blood test, and it came back that I had hyperthyroidism.
Okay.
And because of that, I had to go on medication for about a year. And during that time, I was told to not get pregnant. So then that delayed, right?
I see.
And then after it's not something that you can cure completely, but you can kind of settle down. So then I was like, okay, let's have a baby. But then another thing happened, which you probably don't know, is that I had a fibroid in my uterus. So that delayed kind of another 9 months. So, and then I was able to have him.
It's these things. I feel it's amazing that you're actually talking about that and talking about your experiences, because there's a lot of times that journey in itself to become a mother or in the parenting journey, it's quite lonely. It's not often that you hear people. There is always a story. Right. So it's great to have somebody who is a public figure, openly talking about potential struggles in order to actually become a mom. Right. So it was brave and really very helpful to everybody else who is trying to have a baby.
Right.
It's not an easy journey. So, but now you have such a wonderful little thing that came at the end of it.
Right.
It's worth the wait.
It definitely was.
So when you were pregnant, what was one thing that you were most excited for?
I mean, really everything. Again, me and Kris have been together for 10 years, and we had so much time. I was there with helping raise his daughter. So just having this new chapter after 10 years, it kind of just was really a blessing. And so I'm just excited.
To have a little baby.
Just to see him grow, to take him to school. I dream about him running with a little backpack in nursery, all those little things, I just can't wait for him to.
It must be so nice to have a baby as a part of, obviously with older children, it's a wonderful phase in their life. And then I find a little baby does bring a completely different dynamic. Do you find that has sort of shifted the dynamic a little bit?
Yeah. The house is a little bit, just happier, and it just, it's the best thing. Really.
Everyone's fawning over a baby.
Yeah, they love him. And his sisters, his two older sisters, Nishi and Kiki, they're amazing. They help so much with him as well.
So, I mean, you are a working mom. You handle a massive business. How have you found harmony when I feel this is a comment, we've talked about this yesterday and today heavily, about whether it's guilt, whether it's trying to balance, is there balance? How have you managed to kind of integrate working as well as family commitments?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously it's our brand. FadeFit is our company that we own. So I am lucky enough to be able to work from home. Yeah. But again, we have a team, we have our staff here. That's amazing. But there's a bigger team as well. And without them, obviously, it couldn't be where it is now. So I do rely a lot on that because it's hard, especially working from home and having a baby. It's not easy.
I mean, if COVID taught us anything for me, I'm sorry, my boys are right there, but I can definitely not work around them. As much as I would love to, I feel like when mommy's at home, it's there's no such thing as work. It's the whole time is dedicated to children. True. I'm sure you guys would all agree. Can any of you work at home? You can? You need to tell us how. Because there's no possibility. I can't even, I'm sorry, I love you, Lathan Zain. I can't even take a work call at home. Oh, okay. Yeah, nanny.
The net, of course. Yeah, we have an office in the back as well. But, I mean, no, I want to be with him. It's not that he needs me. It's that I want to be with him, throughout the day. So.
Mom guilt.
Yeah.
Do you often experience it? Is it something that you deal with on a daily basis?
I mean, when I have, let's say, a meeting or I need to do something, a shoot, and I need to be out for a few hours. Yeah, you have that guilt. I experienced the biggest guilt though when I stopped breastfeeding. Yeah, so that was a hard one. Now I'm glad, it's kind of a weight off the shoulder. When I look back, I'm like, you know what, I gave him the best, we had the best moments together. I love that bond. Nobody can take that away from me. but you know,
Why did you feel that way a little bit?
sorry.
Why did you feel that way? Why did you feel guilty?
So, well, um, I don't know. I mean, it's obviously breastfeeding is you know important. You know, you provide nutrients, bond, like all the benefits. I wanted to give that to him, and him being my first child, and who knows, maybe my only one. I wanted to have that moment with him. My plan was to actually breastfeed him for a year.
Yeah.
So that was the plan. I thought it was going to be easy. You know, I didn't think it was going to be hard at all. I know there's like struggles and challenges, but I was like so, you know, focused on it. But yeah, I was never producing enough. So that was another thing that was so challenging. So it was very demanding. And then I remember we actually traveled to the States for a month. And by then it was just almost impossible to breastfeed him during that time. And he just kind of like stopped, you know, and I was like, it kind of broke my heart a little bit. I don't know if you've experienced that, but it was a bit hard, you know.
Do you know, I find breastfeeding, again, there's so much emphasis that needs to be placed on how difficult breastfeeding is and how much support it needs even during pregnancy. It's a very common thing. I mean, it was quite similar to me. I managed to breastfeed, but there was moments of guilt when I felt like I just want to stop. It was getting a bit too difficult. And I find if you're, you know, you being a happy, content person definitely outweighs, I guess, the breastfeeding. And I don't know if that's by popular opinion, but I think if you are happy and you are quite stable and a happy mom, you're going to have a happy baby. Right. So regardless of it, I think it's,
Now I look back and say, you know, I'm not, it was probably better for me to kind of like just stop and, you know, just not be stressed and be comfortable. And he's a happy baby. Like
he seems really
he's
happy.
A good boy, so
he seems really happy.
That's important. But he's not right now. He's a little tired.
That's what they all say. I was going to ask you, so what surprised you once you had a baby, a newborn?
Yeah.
What was the biggest surprise from a newborn?
Yeah. So, well, besides the breastfeeding, let's see, what was the big surprise?
I mean, it could be a good surprise.
I think really just like the love, like the amount of love I had for him was like, you know, I obviously, it's my first child. You don't know how it's gonna be, but yeah, I think the surprise is just how obsessed I am with him. And it's just the best little boy ever.
He really is. He's so cute. Would you say challenges would be the breastfeeding?
Yeah.
That would be the biggest one?
I think that was the biggest, challenge for me. It was the breastfeeding. I mean, I think it's also situational, like challenges. You know, I think if I were to have a baby back home in the States where I'm originally from, you know, I think there would be challenges there, you know, with the maternity leave and, you know, with the support that you have around you, you know. So it might have been a different challenge there. But here, like,
you are supported, and there is a network.
There is more of a network here, so definitely.
I always think that. I mean, at the end of for me, one of my biggest challenges, especially after having my first, there was a point where I kept thinking to myself, okay, we got to 6 months, my life was going to go back to normal. Oh no, he started eating, my life was going to go back to normal. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be able to go back to almost like a pre-baby life. Your life will never go back to normal. It has changed in wonderful ways and in challenging ones. And I found that was one thing that I kept sort of going back and forth, especially with the first. But the second, I kind of accepted it.
Yeah.
But it was like that with the first. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I think because of my age, I'll be 36 in July. I think
Me too in July. When's your birthday?
July 17th.
Oh, I'm 27.
Okay, nice. So I feel like I'm good. Like my life from you know until now, like I've done what I wanted to do. Like I'm happy. There's nothing like I don't think I'm gonna go through a midlife crisis. I hope not.
No, I don't.
But you know, like I'm happy to just dedicate everything to him. Like I'm ready and prepared for that. So like I'm happy that I had him at this age. I know I wanted to have him earlier, but like I think this is, you know,
that's the perfect time.
The perfect time for me.
They always say there's never a perfect time, but it's good to know that you're quite comfortable with the time to be a mom. You know, you're sort of relishing in the whole experience, which is very important. Self-care.
Yes. Self-care.
What does Brianna do when she needs a little time on her own?
Well, the biggest thing I do is go to the gym. I've always been pretty active. It's important. I mean, for me, it's. I mean, obviously, it's physical, but a lot of it's mental. So it's kind of my space. I go, like, you know, I have an hour a day, and I just work out. You know, so I do that. I studied yoga actually for a little bit, so I actually enjoyed yoga. You know, I mean, but just basic things like just going out and getting your nails done or getting massage, like, you know, just little things here and there. You do need time for yourself as a mom, just to pamper yourself, or, you know, so yeah, it's definitely important.
It's that moment, you know, when I always find it's the moment where I don't feel guilty about it. You know, a lot of the times, again, the guilt keeps swirling around, motherhood and guilt. But for me, any type of self-care is any moment where I can do an activity for a given amount of time, let's say an hour, and I don't feel guilty about it.
Yeah.
So I find that I go back and I feel quite happy, and, you know, my cup is full, and I can sort of be a better parent to the boys, be a better wife to my husband. So it's that point.
Yeah, exactly.
But I find self-care, I find self-care sometimes gets thrown around, like you have to fit it into your schedule. Right. You know, you have to make sure that, you know, with all of your responsibilities, try to put self-care in, which, I mean, the majority of moms are thinking, well, I don't really have time.
You don't have time.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's always a challenge for that, you know, is making just time for yourself, you know. But self-care can also just be like, okay, once your kids are asleep and you just need to watch TV.
Absolutely,
and
zone
Netflix,
out.
You know, like that's also self-care too,
you know,
for sure.
Relationships often change after having a baby. I think, you know, at the end of the day, every single relationship, I don't know where he went, but he's probably one to tell you, there's always going to be some sort of evolution in relationships. How have you navigated that? Has that also sort of been a part of your journey?
Well, I mean, Kris and I have always been a good team. You know, we've worked together. I was his assistant as well for a while, which is a whole other story. I'll get there.
On another podcast.
On another podcast. But yeah, so we've always been a good team, you know, like we, you know, in work and in personal life, you know, we're just, I mean, we're great. We have a good relationship. So, you know, I think it's just a nice step, you know, and I think we've evolved as people in our careers and where we are. So just to have, you know, bring, you know, Kruz into this world, it's just amazing. Like, I mean, we have our roles, right, as well. So he's the provider. You know, and, you know, I'm home raising his son. So, you know, it's just a good team. And
it's a good team. I think it also helps. I mean, Kris has kids. I mean, you are a stepmom. So I think you guys have been technically raising children for quite some time. So I think it's, you know, you've tested the waters, and it's quite stable in that regard.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's a little obviously different. You know, I've been in the girls' lives for 10 years now, so I saw them grow up, and, you know, I had my role as a stepmom, which was a little different now, you know, but I feel like, you know, I guess, and how, now that I think about it, now that you mentioned it, maybe it has helped me prepare for being an actual mom too, so
I always end a podcast with a quote.
Yeah.
A quote that you kind of live by, something that you often repeat, something that you kind of are always connected to. Do you have one to share?
So,
like your favorite one?
Yeah, you know, I do. I mean, there's a few. I mean, basically, like, there was one, I forget it now, but it's pretty much, you know, like, there's always, you know, a rainbow after the storm, you know, kind of how I live my life. Don't know if you know, I actually briefly speak about it on the show Dubai Bling, where I actually didn't grow up with a mom. I'm not going to cry, okay? So, yeah, I had my grandparents raising me, so I had kind of a rough, I guess, upbringing, but, you know, it's kind of made me who I am now, and just kind of grateful for all of that.
That's always, you know, you are the sum of your experiences, and it's one of those things that there's always a way to go both ways kind of thing. So seeing as though you did have maybe a rough start in your childhood, you are probably over sort of compensating and over sort of showing the love, and that, I think, is a silver lining, and it might just give such a beautiful perspective for gratitude. And it's really wonderful, and it's just one of those things that it changes your life in more ways than not.
Yes, agree.
Brianna, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here, guys. Thank
you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to They Say It Takes a Village. Now, you guys will probably notice that this episode is divided into two because I've had the pleasure of interviewing Brianna 2 times. The first was at the Baby Expo. It was more of a brief discussion just to get to know her a little bit better. And then we decided to take it into the studio to actually get a full deep dive into her life, her ups and her downs, and her full journey up until today. So I hope you enjoy this episode and tune in for the second part. Welcome back to They Say It Takes a Village. As some of you probably know by now, that this podcast and Wear That Now have formed a beautiful partnership where they have kindly provided me these gorgeous outfits that you see episode after episode, because let's face it, it's all been recorded and I've literally ran out of everything to wear. For some of you who don't know how Wear That Now works, if you head over to their Instagram, which is at wear.that.now, click the link in their bio and fill out their style survey. What happens then is you get paired up with your very own personal stylist. That stylist will then curate a personalized box to fit your budget, your occasion, and your style. That box will get sent straight to your doorstep for you to try on the clothes in the comfort of your own home. The outfits that you love, you keep, and the ones that you don't, you simply return. It's as easy as that. So if you're anything like me and you've got occasions coming up throughout the year, and the idea of going to the mall, especially with little children, gives you anxiety, head over to at wear.that.now, fill out their style survey, and start shopping from the comfort of your own home. Happy shopping. Joining me today is a woman that wears literally all the hats. She is an entrepreneur. She's a wife. She's a mother. She's a TV reality star. The lovely Brianna Fade literally does it all. And she is sitting across the table from me to have a conversation about her journey, life, motherhood, and everything in between. So sit back, relax, grab a coffee, a tea, and whatever is your beverage of choice, and enjoy, because this is going to be a good one. Brianna, thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me. Finally.
I know. Finally. I feel like we have chatted for the past year to actually make this happen.
Yes.
But we finally got here.
I know.
We had a small little teaser interview at the Baby Expo, but I feel like that was a bit intense, with a lot of people and, just not as intimate setting.
Right.
It's just like, having this around.
Yeah, exactly. And it was kind of a short talk, right?
Yeah, so, it definitely was.
Now we're going to get into a little bit more detail.
As detailed as you want to go. A funny story. You were telling me that the last time that we had booked this to do this, you had something else that was happening.
So we had planned it, right? We were on communications. I think we even set a date for the podcast, right? It was, I think, maybe just a few days after that, I went into labor. And I didn't tell you. I think I just said, hey, I'm not available anymore.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, it's fine.
Yeah, because at the time it was kind of, we only let our friends and family, know that I was actually, giving birth. So it was kind of hush hush on social media. Yeah. So that's why I couldn't say it that I was actually, I actually had him. I think I had him probably while I was messaging you. I had him like,
Well, thank you for letting me know. I have to say I was gutted. I was like, oh no.
I know.
But no, it's so nice how it just sort of all comes full circle. And I'm so grateful that you're here today. And we were just talking about the fact that we finally grabbed this opportunity before. I mean, it's June and summer's about to round the corner. So I'm like, yes, let's do this now. So brilliant. Thank you.
Of course.
To sort of jump straight into it.
Yes.
I guess a question that always, comes up is just to ask you, who are you?
Sure. Yeah.
And what would you say is, what gets you up in the morning? What sort of drives you, in life and in whatever aspect?
Sure. Well, I'm an LA girl from Dubai. So born and raised in Los Angeles. And, I'm just here, living a dream, living my life, trying to make a better life for myself and my family. So yeah, just, I come from like a very, very humbled background, didn't grow up with a lot. Grandparents raised me, grew up with lots of siblings and cousins around in a, small house, but big family.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I've just, come out here to Dubai on my own, really. And
how long have you been here?
I've been here for 10 years now.
Okay. A long
10
time.
years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now obviously I've made my own family and it's a beautiful thing.
It has been.
Yeah.
Did you come out here to work?
So I came out here to work. Yes.
Yeah.
I was, actually working in hospitality in Los Angeles. Was told about an opportunity to come to Dubai, was going to come with a friend. So me and her came. Just, we were 24 then at the time.
And you're like, why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
It was only supposed to be for 2 years. Like
that's
right?
always the story. I think my family we're pushing 30 years now and they're like, we're going to be here for a maximum 5 years.
Yeah.
This is the story. You're going to be here forever now.
No, I think so. So. It's 10 years later.
Yeah.
And I have a husband, a son and 2 bonus daughters. So it's like, we're good. Yeah.
Amazing. And so you initially you sort of came out here, worked in hospitality.
Yes. So I worked, it was
the city for it.
Yeah,
isn't
exactly.
It? Yeah.
But it was completely different. It's not the same back home.
Yeah.
Where you make tips and it's like a great industry to work in, plus the place that I was working was horrible. Like the owners they actually ended up, kind of running away from the country and, millions of dollars. Like it's crazy. It was kind of one of those stories.
Yeah.
But during that time I met my now husband, Kris Fade. So yeah, and that kind of obviously kept me here.
That's right.
So yeah, that's it.
Amazing. You touched on it. Obviously I feel like now, it's so funny that, you never can imagine your life going a certain way. Yeah. So 10 years ago, you've moved to Dubai and, your idea of working here, living here may be a bit different to what it is now. And I feel an aspect of that now you've got almost like a public persona.
Yeah.
And obviously being on television, Dubai Bling and all of that.
Right.
That I felt like it's a bit of a whirlwind.
It was. I mean, I feel like being Kris Fade's wife, I feel like it's just part of the territory because he was always, he's been Kris Fade
in the public eye.
Yeah, he's been in the public eye. He's been here for I think over 15 years now. So he's always been who he is. And when I met him, I had no idea. Yeah, I think we went on our first dates and I just remember like people coming up to him, like,
and you're like, who are you?
I'm like, who is this guy? So I actually didn't know kind of like, on the scale of, fame he was on.
Yeah.
And it's just, but to me, he's, he's my husband. He's a normal guy. Like he's super down to earth. Right. So it's like, I see it now, like from then till now, it has grown exponentially, obviously because of his radio show.
Yeah.
His show is in Australia, was in Lebanon as well. And plus Dubai Bling has just, brought so many more viewers to us and so many eyes and followers as well.
Yeah.
So, I feel like I've just been there for the ride.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, even on Dubai Bling, I was kind of just there for the ride, it was like, obviously it was presented because of, of who he was and our family as well. They knew who we were. And so it was just, Dubai Bling was definitely a very interesting thing to be a part of.
I always think, there is a level of confidence. I mean, even just now before we started, I have to talk into the camera to sort of announce something and I hate it. And it always scares me. I feel like there is, I've watched you. And there is this level of confidence. I mean, was that always the case, even growing up?
No. I mean, even till now, I feel like I'm still a bit shy. Like I get a bit stage fright. I think when we were on stage having the chat, I was just looking at you because I was like, if I look at here, I'm going to get so nervous.
I was too. And I had to present after your husband. I was like, what?
I know, right?
How can I do that? Like it was just horrendous.
Compared to Kris, he is like such an extrovert, right? Like he demands the stage, right? He loves that attention. And I prefer being behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I think I'm more introvert. Definitely as a kid, I was super shy.
It doesn't come off.
Really?
No.
Oh my God. Yeah. I feel like I am more reserved.
Yeah.
In my 20s, I think I kind of broke out of my shell, but now I feel like I'm kind of stepping back. Like I'm like, okay, I don't need to be in that spotlight. Like I'm happy to just kind of take a step back, hang back and just, chill. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just always, I feel like anyone who is on TV, my first question is, how do you have the confidence to have, these cameras? And was it intimidating?
It's a lot. Like there's a lot of this. Like we have this, right? But can you imagine just like 10 times more?
No,
like
I can't imagine it.
Hundreds of people, right? Imagine so many people. You just have to kind of like zone out
and just focus on whatever you're doing.
Yeah, focus on the conversation, like eye contact, you know, because once you kind of think about that too much, then yeah,
it gets intimidating.
It does.
Yeah, I mean, again, I always find. Exactly. I always think, is it that there's this innate confidence that you can just, you know, present yourself out there? But
no, that's not, it's not a natural thing for me. It's something also I've had to learn as well in a way. Again, being Kris Fade's wife, like you're forced to be in these types of positions. So you kind of just have to roll with it.
That's true. Yeah. No, but I mean, whatever you're doing, keep it up because there is an air of confidence, especially on screen. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I was just like, oh yeah, you know,
thank you.
This has been happening for her whole life. We, at the time of the Baby Expo, obviously we had a very brief conversation about motherhood. And I think when it comes to motherhood, we touched on the fact that, you know, you start in terms of the story of origin.
Yes.
You did mention that you had a tough time growing up.
I did.
Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So I feel like my story started in the delivery room when my mother was giving birth to me. I feel like I hear kind of different stories from my family because obviously I don't know. I was, you know, being born at the time. And I think it was a very hectic day, really, and time. So when my mother was in the delivery room, I was actually, I came out a very heavy baby. And I think back then they didn't have like proper ultrasounds. You couldn't see how heavy or, you know, how big the baby was. So, so it was a very kind of like traumatic delivery for my mother. Yeah. And apparently she had like a tear or something and the amniotic fluid went into her stream and into the bloodstream. Oh. And it's poison. If you know, if it gets into your bloodstream, it goes straight to your heart. And and she had cardiac arrest. She had a heart attack. So while the doctors were with me, they left her without oxygen for, I don't know how long, many minutes. And then she became a vegetable. She was in a vegetative state. So from then she was in a coma, pretty much just there. You know, she wasn't on life support. Like her eyes were open, but she couldn't feed herself. She couldn't communicate. So she was just, so for many years, you know, I would go see her, but didn't really have a connection, couldn't communicate with her. So it was tough, you know, seeing that and growing up with that. So,
and that was during childbirth.
That was during childbirth. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That happened.
And so, and you said you were basically raised by your grandparents.
Yes. So my mother's mom, parents actually raised me. My nana and tata, raised me along with, you know, my siblings and all my cousins.
Were you the youngest?
I was on my mom's side. Yes. So I had my older brother and I had my older sister.
Yeah.
Who, you know, got to know my mom, obviously. You know, my sister was a bit younger. My brother was older. So he was very close to her. So I think it was even harder for them, you know.
I can imagine.
To lose their mom.
Yeah. Because at that point, you know, you wouldn't know any different.
I don't know, you know, and I think that's the norm for me, right? Is not having a mom. So I even get asked questions like, you know, how was it to lose her? I'm like, well, I don't know her. So yeah, you can't really miss anything that you don't know.
Yeah. In terms of, you know, with your grandparents, I mean, do you still see them?
So they passed away a long time ago.
I'm so very sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. So my grandma passed away much earlier than my grandfather. And but they were already kind of elderly. Yeah, you know, they already raised, I think, 6 kids at the time. They had grandchildren, probably even were great grandparents at that time. So they already lived their life. They were, you know, so they didn't expect to have to raise, you know, another girl.
A baby. Yeah, a baby. It's so scary. You know, that's the thing. I mean, we always assume, I mean, now in this day and age, childbirth is pretty standard. Mm-hmm. You don't hear of those stories, you know, where something can go horribly wrong. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are, but obviously the chances are very, very unlikely. And it's just, I'm sorry that that
okay.
that had to happen.
Yeah, it's a shame.
But I think it's also growing up in a huge family where you've got so much support.
Sure.
You know, with your grandparents and your siblings and things like that. I mean,
it wasn't easy though. Like it wasn't an ideal situation to be in.
Yeah.
Because I think everybody had also their own lives, their own kids and things like that. So, I think they did their best to raise me, but also where we were, the neighborhood, the location, it wasn't a great place to live in anyway. So, we didn't grow up with we didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Again, we had, so many people, several people living in our house at one time. I think, people were sleeping on the floor. It was kind of that situation. Cause I'm Mexican American. I'm from Los Angeles. My family's from East LA, which is very tough kind of neighborhood to grow up in. Not great surroundings, not a great environment. So obviously having to deal with that as well was, not easy.
Did you get to a point where growing up where do you make a choice and say, no, I'm going to, try to get out of here and sort of go to university, do whatever I need to do to be able to kind of change that situation?
So, I mean, I didn't go to university. It just wasn't something that was kind of really presented in my family or supported. Nobody really did in my family. So I just didn't feel like I had that support to really, education wasn't a priority, to be honest. I think at some points we were just trying to survive.
That's right.
So, but when I turned 18, I realized I wanted to do something different. I wanted to get out of my area. So I ended up actually moving in with my dad and my dad's side of the family for the first time.
Okay.
So, growing up, I would always see him. It was more on the weekends, right? He would pick me up or my aunt would pick me up on the weekends and I would go visit him. But then I would go back to, where my grandma was. And then, I was 18. So I had the decision and I was like, okay, I want to try something different. And so I moved in with my dad for the first time. And it was great.
Growing up, obviously you had so many different people in your life. Did you have, there's always, I feel like even for me, there's always a standout person that acted like a figure or like a key figure.
Yes.
That kind of almost, how would I describe it? Almost set the tone for something else. It was a person that changed the course of my life at some point. Do you feel you had one of those?
I do. And I think that's obviously my grandma. I love her. She raised me. So I owe everything to her. But I did have my aunt that I mentioned who would pick me up every weekend. My aunt Sylvia, she was amazing. She's always been very positive role model. One of the closest people, I can almost consider her, a mother figure as well. So every Friday she would drive maybe 2 hours, get off work, drive 2 hours to pick me up. We would go to Disneyland. I think I've been to Disneyland probably 200 times because we would go every weekend. And she would drive me home Sunday night. So I'm there for school the next day.
That's so lovely.
Yeah, she was very dedicated.
And she just, that having that person in your corner and that reliability that she was coming regardless, no matter what.
Always there.
Yeah.
Definitely. And we're still very close to this day too.
That's brilliant. No, it's so good. And I find a lot of the time role models and key figures, you end up really, you end up really wanting to almost involve them in every aspect of your life, the good, the bad, that they're your support structure. And I always find when anyone talks about, health and longevity, and it's the lack of these people that has a detrimental impact on your life. So these people are crucial, and it may not necessarily obviously be your biological parents, so it's very important to be able to have that structure around you, to know that there is somebody that's always going to show up for you.
Right. Agree.
And of course, now I feel you, in terms of parenthood, you've technically been a parent for a while, aside from also having a baby yourself.
Yes.
But there are always, we take parts of our childhood into our parenting journey. Do you feel that there were parts of your upbringing or parts of your childhood that you are noticing that you're bringing it into your own parenting journey?
Right. So because it's a interesting situation, right? Because I didn't have really parents growing up. My grandparents, I felt like they were my grandparents. I didn't
That they
call
were
them
mom and dad.
mom and dad, right?
Yeah.
So I felt like I didn't have a reference, to kind of go back. So when I had Kruz, for instance, I didn't have like any memories of what my mother used to do, for me. So I felt like I was kind of like on this clean slate. But what I did realize, I remember just like breastfeeding him one day, and I just realized, I'm like, okay, I actually didn't have that. I got a bit sad. I was like, okay, my mom didn't get to experience that with me. She didn't get to hold me. She didn't get to feed me, care for me. And I also didn't have that, as a baby. And I felt, for the first time, I actually felt sad for me. Cause like growing up, I didn't, woe was me, I just kind of,
got on with it,
accepted it. And like, this is what it is.
Yeah.
So until then, when I had Kruz, it's like, oh yeah, I missed out on those like
bonding
moments. And I was like, it's so special. So I just, it makes me just like love him and just want to, hold him more and longer,
Yeah. It's almost like you rewrite history, right? Exactly. Whatever you had potentially wanted and needed, you're kind of funneling it down to this gorgeous little 7-month-old,
Exactly.
And that's where I find there's a lot of ways that you can go 2 ways. You can go that way or the other way because you don't know any better kind of thing.
Right. And I was worried about that too. Not having that connection, that instant like bond, like this is a bit awkward. Like, I don't know how to connect with this other human, but it was not the case at all. I think as soon as I was pregnant, I was like, I already knew there was a bond there. So
yeah. It's funny that, I mean, I had obviously a mom and a dad. And when my first was born, initially I was like, the bond was there, but it wasn't this overwhelming thing. And I think that it was always just the rush of the fact that I've just given birth and I've got this baby and I had no idea what I was doing. So I don't know. It's just one of those things I find becoming a mother is such a mystery of feelings and emotions. And I remember that so specifically. And I thought they handed me my son and I was just like, hello, like, and it was a very much an outer body experience. And then I do feel that it grew.
Yes.
But it took time.
It did. Okay,
for me. Yeah. It's funny that it's just,
it's so different for everybody.
It's so different. It's so different for every single body, every single person, every single person has their own completely separate feelings when it comes to motherhood. Whether you've been sort of brought up a certain way or not, I don't think it governs what happens down the line. But I'm not a psychologist. So I would have no idea. It's just kind of what I always thought, what predetermines us and our parenting styles. And I naturally think it's how you grew up, but I don't think that there is a big correlation.
Not necessarily. Yeah. I mean, I know I have friends, for instance, that, also probably had less of a connection with her baby.
Yeah.
I always think like, was yours planned? Like, it was planned? You wanted it?
I wanted it. Desperately. So,
It's such an interesting
was such an interesting thing. I think I was overwhelmed with the fact that
it was overwhelmed. Yeah.
And
I get that.
And now what? They gave
what
it
I do. I know, right?
And I was like, what should I do now?
Yeah.
And then I remember thinking like at one point my husband was there and I looked at him and I thought to myself, okay, so now he's here. What should I do?
Right.
And then the nurse left. I'm like, no, don't go.
Oh, no.
Come back in here. You need to tell me what to do.
Oh.
I think that with the second, it wasn't like that. Obviously, I kind of just put him on, started breastfeeding, and we just got on with it.
Right. Yeah.
But it was such a strange time. And I remember that so vividly. Anyway, pivotal moments. Do you feel like you had any of these like sliding door moments in your life where things could have gone one way, but they really went the other? Your facial expression is like, hell yeah.
I mean, definitely. I mean, there's so many things, right? There's so many kind of like different paths that we could have taken if we've chosen
absolutely
the door, A door or B door, like, our lives could have went completely different way. And I felt like I had so many moments, where it could have gone south. Like, if I look at kind of my family and the history and the kind of the environment that I was in, like I could have gone a really, really bad route.
Yeah.
But choosing to move in with my dad at the age of 18, was a great path. If I didn't do that, who knows where I would have been. Not coming to Dubai, that could have been, obviously my life would have been completely different. So there's so many moments in my life where, and I've always been very independent and like free will. Like I came to Dubai, I think I told my family like 2 months before I left that I'm coming. Like I've always been very like free-willed, independent, and like make my own decisions. And my family's, it's supportive in the way where they're like, are you happy? Like, are you safe? Then go.
You can
go. You know, I mean, but again, like I can't, nobody's in my family is going to tell me not to do something.
Yeah.
They might express like, you know, we're worried about you, but that's kind of it. So, there's so many pivotal moments in my life.
I always find when you got to Dubai, were you kind of a bit, I don't know, sort of charged to sort of start a new life, you know, motivated to kind of see where this was going? Or were you like, oh my God, I need to go back. This is not.
No, I mean, so as soon as I landed, I was like, I loved it. I loved Dubai. However, the place that I was working, like, it was horrible. It was probably the worst place I've ever worked. It was actually not like a restaurant nightclub slash nightclub. And it wasn't even open at the time. And then we found out that they weren't giving us tips. Firstly, they promised us that we were going to make money like we did back home. Yeah. We found out that they were like, had cut our pay, took our tips away. So I hated that for me. But then I loved Dubai. Like I had friends, like I was going out. I was young. I was 24. I was like, this is new. Like if this job's not going to work, maybe I'll
get another one.
That's right. Go travel somewhere else. Like I was like, this is my time to just explore the world, really. So I was super excited. I was like bright eyed and like I was just trying to have fun at
young
that time.
And unimpressionable. And just,
So my option, of course, was to go back home if this didn't work, which it didn't. But then I met Kris. Yeah. So, you know, I was like, okay, let's make it work here. Started getting other jobs at that time. And, you know, we made it work. And that's it.
You guys, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys started FadeFit as your entrepreneurial journey.
Yes.
That's like the first step.
Yes.
Right? Okay.
So FadeFit actually started with Kris because he was going through a transformation.
Yeah.
So I actually met him like very soon after his divorce. And I think he was just getting over the point in his life where he was like depressed. He gained a lot of weight. He had a lot of anxiety. And when he was going through the transformation and when I met him, he started using the hashtag FadeFit, obviously because Kris Fade, he was getting fit, right? So he was using it just to document his journey. A lot of people started like using the hashtag, messaging him saying, oh my God, thank you for the motivation, asking him for tips and tricks on, you know, how to get there. And then I was with him at the time. So we're like, let's do something. Let's create an event. So FadeFit actually was a free event and seminar. So we had,
that's so cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So he obviously talked about his journey. We had motivational speakers. We had Sujit, who's like in a wheelchair, but also works out. We had nutritionists, dietitians, psychologists. It was UFC Gym at the time was a sponsor. We had free workouts, and it was like this beautiful free event. Just motivational.
I didn't realize. So it started as a concept.
It was a concept.
Yeah. And then you guys decided to take it a step further.
Yeah, we're like, okay, so we want something concrete. We want something tangible that we can use.
Products.
And he had his his girls were super young at the time. And we're like, okay, let's do something for them. So we launched the first kid snack. It was FadeFit Kids. Yeah. So Choco Loco was the first one. It was like date-based snack, like very healthier option than most
than
that
the
you would
stuff
find.
that you find. Yeah.
So then we started with that, and the business grew. Now we have, you know, protein balls. We're coming out with
honestly,
protein
I
bars,
love them.
puffs.
You've got a salted caramel one.
I'm so
like
sorry.
I think I've got one in my bag.
Really? Okay, I'm gonna send you some.
No, they're my favorite.
Okay,
I literally have one in my bag.
Really?
They are my go-to. Like I find, you know, sometimes when you're on the road, and I do a lot of, you know, sort of trips to Abu Dhabi or Al Ain or whatever. To stop at a petrol station, there's not very many options that unless you're picking up a pack of crisps or chocolate. Exactly. I literally, all I scan for is the FadeFit.
No way.
I swear.
Done.
They are my absolute favorite. No, it's just, and I just find that they're perfect, like bite-sized little packets of energy.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't feel guilty about them at all.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
So no, they're definitely something. I mean, you guys are onto something.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it was just, but it must be difficult though. When you guys started that, I find there weren't a lot of, I guess I would say, homegrown brands that were making healthy snacks, I would say.
Yeah, it was definitely a new industry for us. Like, we don't know anything about the F&B business or the FMCG business, you know, like completely new to us. So we did rely on like a team, right? So we have like a consultant sales team called Imagine, our manufacturers, Notions, distribution, ESF, like it's all to that. It's, you know,
they kind of keep the wheels in motion.
Yeah. I mean, cause we need it. I mean, cause internally it's literally just Kris, me, an assistant and a content creator. And that's it. Right. That's all. That's what FadeFit is, the team internally. And then we have obviously our team.
Yeah. The more logistics part of it.
Logistics. Right.
Is it a double-edged sword working with your partner?
You know what? It's a lot better now. Can I tell you?
Yes.
I was actually, so before FadeFit, and it was like very soon after I ended up quitting that job that brought me here. I needed something.
Yeah.
So I worked like little jobs here and there. Then Kris was like, just work for my management company. So I ended up working with Curveball Events. So they do Curveball Events, talent and talent management and event management. So I was doing the event management, but also I was also going with Kris to all his events. So I was like, you know what? Let me just help you out. Like I was already feeling like I was helping him anyways. So I was like, okay, let me just help you out more. So I was assisting him with all the events, going there, speaking to the clients, helping him with the schedule. And so I was his assistant essentially.
Yeah.
It was the hardest thing ever. Oh my gosh. Let me tell you, it was very difficult. I did that for 2 years. And it's so different. Like, I don't know if you've ever been in a position where you work with your partner. Like,
no,
things get, you say things more loosely. You know what I mean? Like you don't hold your tongue, you know, and when you are mad at your boss, you want to go home to your partner, or your spouse and
you want to talk about
you want to talk, but like, I don't have that. So
yeah.
It was very difficult that those 2 years. I'm like, okay, so and I don't think it was great for the relationship. So I was like, okay, which one's it going to be? You know, assistant or girlfriend at that time.
Yeah.
So I was like, so I ended
the
up,
latter.
Yeah. So I ended up kind of leaving that, more focusing on just the events. So I didn't have to work with him so closely. But then at that time, then we, you know, found FadeFit. And then now that's my position. I'm the brand manager. So it's a bit different. He's not, you know, he's not in a position where he is your boss. Yes.
Yeah. It's almost like he's your a business partner.
Yes. Yeah. We're more partners. Yeah. So we kind of work simultaneously, and it's a good position right now, and I love it. Like we're such a good team, and
it looks like you guys are really, you know, as you said, he's quite an extrovert, and you're not as much. So there is a bit of a yin yang situation there.
Exactly.
And that does definitely work. I find if you've got two people who are vibrating the same way, there's a lot of clashing. I think. Yeah. But no, it's definitely a winning combination. But no, I can't imagine. I mean, working, number one, working for my husband, I would kill myself. I mean, as it is at the moment, you know, the list of things that he says to me, and I just sort of like, I'm sorry, what? Yeah. No, I can't imagine it. Obviously with the fact that you are technically, I mean, like you said, you are the brand manager of this massive sort of enterprise, and the fact that you've added on a layer of sort of celebrity dome, and you've got a baby. First of all, if I say the word balance, does that mean anything to you?
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
I think actually it's something I've been like kind of, So balance is definitely something I've been kind of preaching and practicing. I actually have a yin yang tattoo on me.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
It's funny. I just said that.
Yeah. Right. So like, I do believe in like good and bad and the balance. And I think it's so important to always strive for it. I don't think anybody is actually perfectly balanced. I think it's a very hard thing to achieve, but I think if you practice trying to achieve it, I think it's just a good way to live.
How then next, obviously follow-up question. How do you do it? How do you juggle?
So I mean, so I feel like, okay, if you look at balance kind of on a scale, right? Especially being a mom and, you know, and also working a full-time job, you know, there's always something, you know, that's going to be kind of, you know, outweighed, right? So for instance, especially for FadeFit right now on my scale, being a mom is definitely more of a priority than FadeFit. And I'm realizing that, you know, and so there's some times where I need to take a day, you know, and I'm, you know, gone, you know, in the office for a few days, for a few hours, or I'm at a coffee shop just working on my laptop, my head down, right? So then I can kind of fill that cup a little bit more and be a little bit more balanced, you know? Sorry. And then there's days where I'm just completely with Kruz all day and I might, you know,
let that one drop.
Yeah, I might let the work drop a little bit. And I'm trying to find that perfect balance because Kruz is it's such a pivotal age right now.
Absolutely.
I want to be there for him completely. Like, I do have amazing support back home. I have Virginia and her sister Marilyn, you know, they're both our live-in nannies and I trust them completely. So I don't have to like worry. I'm not this type of mother that's like, I don't want anybody to raise my children without me because they've been with us for 15 years. So it's not about that. But I want to be with him. It's for me. Like, it's for my own, like,
it's also, you're at an age where there's a lot of first times.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, there's a lot of first steps, you know, first foods, first words. So I totally get that. And I think this is something that a lot of working mothers and parents grapple with. You know, there is a sense of guilt where, like you said, you know, there are days where you have to be in the office, but your mind's a little bit at home as well. But you've also filled up your cup a little bit more and, you know, interacting with adults and it's, you know, less of the baby thing. And I like the fact that you're almost looking at it, I mean, probably on like a month basis. It's not a day to day. There's always this idea of, you know, I must sort of dedicate 25% to this and 25% to that on a daily basis. And I'm thinking that's not even a possibility. You know, one day it's going to be like this and the next day it's going to be like this. But 100%. If you zoom out in the month,
100%,
you know, have you achieved somewhat of a balance between your home and work life or whatever it might be? And I find that's where the word balance, I mean, you should try to achieve it, but I find very dangerous unless you really think about it in a sort of a bigger picture.
Sure. Exactly.
100%. And that's, it's very important. Like there are going to be days in everybody's life that you're able to give a full 90% to whatever it is that you're doing. And there are days where you can only dedicate 10.
Yeah. And it's also situational too. Like there's not a lot of moms that, you know, are able to take that time off from work. You know what I mean? Like some people have to go back to work. What is it? 30 to 40 days?
45 days.
45 days after they give birth. So yeah, okay. They're filling their cup up with work at this point. Hopefully in the long term, they can, you know, save some money and I don't know, retire and then be able to be there for their kids and their kids' later on in life, you know? Right. So I feel like it's so situational. It depends on person to person.
It's so true.
And the viewpoint too, you know?
Yeah, it's so true. And it's just, I find it's whatever it is that makes you feel not guilty. You know, I just find a lot of the times again, balance and guilt, they kind of go hand in hand. And motherhood, I don't know what it is. I've stopped feeling as guilty as I did when they were very little, but it's just definitely something that's always in the back of my mind. If I wasn't feeling well on Saturday, for example, we had back-to-back birthday parties. My husband took them to the first one and I canceled on the second one. All day I felt guilty about it, but I wasn't well.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just, you know, it's that type of thing. But again, it's either I get better and I can set up a million play dates later.
Yeah, exactly.
Or take them and get progressively worse. And it's just, I don't know, it's one of those things. But yeah, it's a funny thing with balance. I've always had such a, I don't know, I'm in two minds. I feel like there's always an idea that you need to be able to balance it, but you can't look at it from a microscopic lens.
Right. You have to
zoom out completely.
Pull out, look at it. Yeah. Just go. Yep.
I'm going to ask you a series of questions.
Okay.
And I don't mean to pry.
Okay.
What would you say would be the highest point of your career?
The highest point of my career Well, I feel like it hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
I feel like, I mean, because
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because lots of people will kind of say something, but I love the fact that you feel like there's more in store.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
I love that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I look at my career, you know, obviously in line with the way FadeFit is growing, and we're not where we want to be, with the brand, you know, so we're still like, we've done in the past few years, we've done a show in the States, and kind of that's our end game, right? Like everybody wants to be in the States, especially with snack businesses. Cause once you're in one city, it's like, that's it. Right. Cause right now we're still in the UAE. We're in Saudi, Oman, Bahrain, Kuwait, and a few other places in GCC, and also in Romania, like randomly in one.
That's so random.
But it's growing, you know, and it's so I look at my career like on the same level as FadeFit. So once we're there, like once we make it and we're kind of more worldwide, or once we sell the company, then I feel like then my career will be at the highest point.
Highest point in your personal life?
Oh, having Kruz.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like there's so many moments in life, right? Coming to Dubai was a high point in my personal life. Meeting Kris, getting married, but definitely like having Kruz is like the ultimate. And I just being his mom is like the best like title. Just being a mother is the best title like ever.
It's a superpower.
Yeah.
And I think it's always going to be that way. Mm-hmm. If I was to ask my mom highest point, she'll tell me birth, graduation, and they're all to do with me and my sister.
Right. Yeah. And that's like, I'm so happy for that. Like, I feel like I've had a good life, like, you know, challenging, tough, like very interesting, like, and it's brought me here to this day. And I'm like so dedicated to him now, to Kruz. And I just like want to be completely selfless, because I've been selfish, right? I was selfish until now, I feel like, because I've had fun, not had responsibilities. I'm like, okay, now this is my time to like be selfless 100% and like just be his mom and see him grow and watch him be the person he's going to be later on.
He's a lucky little kiddo.
Yeah, thank you.
What would you say would probably be the most challenging point in your career or
in my
professional
career?
life? That could also include things like being on TV, being sort of in the public.
Definitely. Well, yeah, being on Dubai Bling was it was interesting and challenging at the same time. I don't know what to say. Sorry.
I can imagine it would be really overwhelming.
It's definitely overwhelming. Also because hold on, how do I say this? Okay, it's reality TV, but I think we all know that reality TV isn't so real.
Yeah.
Right?
It has to be a little bit.
Right. I mean, there's cameras in your face. Like, you're told to be on set at a certain time. You get your hair and makeup done. I mean, when in real life is that ever the case?
Never.
You know? Right.
Yeah.
So you're put in certain situations that you might not be, or with people you might not be with, you know? So and then there's drama and situations happening. So you have to react. But also for me, which was challenging, is because Kris especially, like he was known before Dubai Bling, right? He has a certain persona, and he's like, the Kris Fade show is what it is. It's a very wholesome family show.
Absolutely.
So we had to also consider that when we're doing the show. Like, okay, you don't want to do too much and say too much, because it could ruin your reputation.
That's the thing. There's no need to bring in that extra light or scandal to something that his life isn't that way.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So that was a very challenging thing to have to kind of consider. You want to also try to be entertaining, but also you have to kind of bite your tongue in certain things. So that was a very kind of like challenging moment. Definitely.
Are you thinking that this is going to continue?
I can't say. Okay. I can't say at this point. Yeah.
Fair enough. We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah. You'll just have to wait and see.
That's it.
Yeah.
And again, this one, I don't mean to pry, but I'm going to ask you what was the lowest point personally. And the only reason why I ask, because obviously a lot of the times people see, of course, your beautiful life and the blessings that you have, and you know, on social media and on Instagram, and everything looks wonderful.
Right.
But in reality, we go through ups and downs on a yearly, monthly, weekly basis. And it's kind of just to point out that, you know, what you see is definitely sharing happy moments. Again, I mean, if I was very, very ill over the weekend, it's not like
you're not posting.
I'm not posting anything about that. But I just wanted to ask you that because this, you know, again, this show or this podcast, a lot of the times you have a lot of new moms listening, and a lot of the times you get that comparison, and the comparison is so easy because it's on your phone,
right?
So that's why I'm asking, as opposed to kind of putting you on the spot.
No, I mean, I'm just trying to think. Like, you're asking, like, what's my lowest point now? Like, just compared to what people would see on social media, like
probably, or was it something that in your life that has happened that you would consider as the lowest point?
I mean, there's so many. I mean, there's so many low points in my life. Like, I feel like all my lower points in my life happened from really age birth to, I mean, I don't want to say until I moved to Dubai, but I feel like as soon as I moved to Dubai, I did feel, you know, my life obviously easier. My life changed, like, for the better. So I feel like I had so many low points in my life. And that's because not only because of the situation that I was born into, I don't think that's a low point in my life. I don't consider, you know, my mom, it's a horrible thing to happen, but it wasn't something that it's made me the person who I am, but I've never felt bad or like felt bad for myself or like, what was me? Like, why did this happen to me? So I didn't feel like that was a low point. I might have made some not great decisions in my 20s, like, you know, just being young and certain boyfriends and things like that, like not having great friends. Like, those were low points in my life as well. But I'm trying to think of the lowest point that I can tell you.
You don't need to.
Okay. But I feel like, okay. I mean, there's so many.
No, look, I think, you know, it's one of those things. It's good to say that because there are so many. Life is long, and you're always going to have a point where you've kind of dipped. Yeah. And the fact that you've dipped and then continued on, and you look back and you think to yourself, you know, you are the sum of all of your experiences. Right. So, you know, it sort of, you know, it goes round, you know, in this like karmic thing, whatever has happened, it comes back, it goes round. And, you know, these could be potential teaching moments for your future children. Exactly. And so it's good to note that regardless, no matter what, bad things are going to happen. Yes. But the resilience factor is probably the most important.
Exactly.
What would you sort of, again, as a mom in an entrepreneurial space, working, trying to juggle a whole bunch of things. I don't think a lot of moms are on reality TV, but just in general, anyone who's listening thinking, I can't seem to potentially balance. What would be your biggest advice?
My biggest advice for new moms, especially, is get help. Definitely get help. I know I would
say the same.
Right. I know there's a lot of moms, and at first I understood they want to do everything because they don't want to seem like a bad mom, or they don't want other people raising their kids and things like that. But it's just, I mean, because I know, for instance, I know a girl who's that way, and she is doing everything. She's there with the baby all day, all night, not getting any sleep, doesn't go out, doesn't have help, has no nanny at all. But she's losing herself as a mom, like her identity and things like that. So it's like, there's just no reason, especially here in these countries, like back home, if I were living back home, I would have a lot of support. I would have my aunts, my dad, my sisters. I'd have a village, right? Because it takes a village. But here I don't have that. So I have Virginia and Marilyn, my nannies. I have Kris and Nushi and Kiki, Kris's daughters, right? And friends and stuff like that who can come around when they can. But I think that support and getting that help is completely okay and is so needed. I mean,
100%.
Right?
100%. Honestly, I think that every time I ask that question, that is the only answer. Be okay to get the help that you need. Yes. Ask for help. Call anybody, a friend, in-laws, mothers, fathers, colleagues. Get them into help. You cannot do it alone. No matter what. there's from the dawn of day,
right.
we weren't supposed to have children and solo parent.
Right. Yeah.
So if there isn't a village, there is definitely going to be a potential opportunity to make one.
Right.
So it's
100%.
so important. I've never needed more people in my, I could coast pretty solo as a single person, even a married person. The moment kids came into the picture, I feel like I just got to know so many more people because I really needed them in my life.
Yes.
Definitely. Yeah. It's just one of the big, that would be my biggest advice.
Is there any other advice people mention?
A lot of the time is also take a moment for yourself.
Yeah. Important. But I feel like you can't do that.
You can't do that if you don't have a village.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But it's almost like you get, two sides of the coin where you might be able to, your village might be there. Yeah. But you just haven't asked.
Right. Okay.
And that point, it's okay to say, hey, listen, could you just come and, take the baby, or could you I just need a minute to myself.
Right.
Or,
so important.
Yeah. And it's more, you'll be so surprised on how many people are so ready to lend a helping hand, but they wouldn't know unless you ask.
Right. That's so true.
So it's definitely one thing that I think everybody needs a break no matter what, a mom, a dad, every human being on the planet, whether that's a day, whether it's a few hours, it just needs to happen to reset. Yes. And honestly, I think another big advice, honestly, is just not to feel guilty. Guilt is the most useless feeling on the planet. And just to always think to yourself, guilt is associated with something that you've done wrong. And if you haven't done anything wrong, so stop feeling guilty.
Right.
So,
true.
Yeah, those are the two things. But I think the biggest one, surround yourself with people for support.
Yes, definitely.
I hate asking this question because I'm not really sure where I stand on this.
Okay.
But do you set goals for the future, for example? So what would be your next 5-year plan?
Personally?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Personally, professionally, whatever.
So professionally, obviously we're growing FadeFit. We want to, just see how it goes internationally, get into the States and in Europe as well. So definitely grow the brand, to a more household name. Personally, so me and Kris have been talking about what's next, with our life. We're happy, we can be content with Kruz and him, and the girls are a little older now, and just having him just focusing completely all our attention on him and watching him grow up and raising him, or to add another little baby. So,
how exciting.
I don't know. So initially when I mentioned that to Kris, I think even while I was pregnant, I was like, okay, so are we going to have another one? At first he was like,
nope.
No. He said no. And now he's like, well, I just bought a bigger car, so maybe we can. So I was like, wait, what?
The car is the deciding factor.
Right. So I feel like he's leaning towards it, so maybe that's in my future plan.
Fingers crossed it is. No, I think the bigger the families, the better. Honestly, it's such a beautiful thing when you've got so many brothers and sisters, and for me, I'm just a bit worried because I'm like, okay, I have Kruz and I can just focus all my attention and just be that mom that's there for every assembly and concert that they do in school, right? I would love to do that. But if I have another baby, it might be a little bit more challenging. So how do I, you'd be so surprised how you can split.
Really? Yeah.
It's a phenomenal thing. I don't know, but you just do it. You just do it.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're literally doing the assemblies for the other one, and half an hour later you're in the class, whatever it is for the other.
Okay.
And it's definitely, you get a bit of the back seat.
Yeah.
But you just do it.
You just do it.
Yeah.
And what's the difference between your boys?
Mine, 3 years.
3 years. Okay. Yeah. So then you had that.
I had a bit of a runway.
Okay.
I had a runway. So
that's good. And I feel like I don't have that because I'm going to be 36 this year.
Oh my God. You're so young.
No.
Yes. No, you've got plenty of time.
I don't think so. I don't want, I don't know. Let's see.
I'm 39 next month.
No, but how old are your boys? You look amazing, by the way.
Thank you. It's the Botox.
But your boys are older now, right?
They are. They're 6 and 3. So
okay, I see.
Laith was 32. Zane was 35.
Okay. And that's a good age, like, to stop. I'm like,
yeah. Everyone's like, oh, but do you want to try for a third? No, absolutely not. I'm like, oh, let's have a little girl. I'm like, no, you have your own children. I'll come and play with your babies.
Oh,
like, it's
goodness.
no way.
No. Okay.
I do say though, if I was to look back, I think to have them closer.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it would have been good.
Because it is a bit, when they're younger, it is, sorry. It's
kind of in
such a big age gap right now, right?
Yeah. And I mean, now they're okay. But I think if they were like 2 years apart or even like as much as I could get them closer together, because you would have already been in the baby swing.
Sure. And now because Kris had his, right? They're 18 months apart.
Oh,
so now they're like best friends, right? Now like that I see and I'm like, oh, I want that for Kruz, like seeing how close they are and you don't have to entertain them as much, right? They entertain themselves. So it's great. Yeah.
Oh, well, fingers crossed. We'll have to sort of sending you those vibes, the baby vibes. I always end a podcast with a quote. I always find quotes give such a nice context to everything that we talk about.
Sure.
I've got one.
Okay.
Mine is, nothing in life is to be feared. It's only to be understood. And I think that kind of, ties in quite nicely to everything that we talked about. Do you have one for us today?
I do. And I feel like it ties in, like, just the way I look at life now. My outlook is be the person you needed when you were younger.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
That is perfect. Oh, Brianna, I don't know what to say. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for it all. Honestly, this was so nice to get to know you. You always sort of, you have a look at somebody and you always think to yourself, it would be nice to sort of find out a little bit more, and I'm so grateful. Honestly, your life is inspirational to say the least.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to They Say It Takes a Village. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I look forward to bringing you another one next week. Don't forget, please subscribe, rate, and review so I can reach and help even more parents. And if you've got a topic that you'd like me to cover, please head over to my Instagram page, ittakesavillage.me, and drop me a line.